Everybody, welcome back. We're doing another Marvel Future Revolution video. In this one, we are going to be looking at Doctor Strange. We've got a lot of changes recently. Got somebody who's followed Doctor Strange very closely, played with it, watched all the changes, was even recommended as one of those like best list of changes that they gave and gave a prize to when they were taking the survey. So Busy's with us today, and I'd say he's one of the most knowledgeable as far as everything goes. Doctor Strange knows it very intimately, so we appreciate him coming on and sharing some of that knowledge. We'll talk to him a little bit about the status of Doctor Strange, where he's at, the specific changes, and maybe even things that he thinks still need to be changed. So check that out. If you're new to the channel, check out Discord, link in the description below, all that sort of thing. Hammer down like buttons, of course, and let's get to it.
WolverThor!
Busy, how you doing, buddy? Thanks for coming on.
All right, I'm all right.
All right, so you're, I just kind of set it up so I was telling everybody that you can know some Doctor Strange stuff. So, which, you know, obviously you and I have had a bunch of talks. We're going to go through, you know, sort of high level, but also some detail on what the changes are and where Doctor Strange is in the game currently. I want to start by just saying like a high level, because you were talking about this the other day and you had some videos that you shared with me about how hard it is to like sort of optimize stats with him. Can you just like hit on that just a little bit, and then we'll go through each section, like skills, specializations, all that. Like why is it so hard to optimize the stats on Strange?
Got it. So this is something that only in-game Doctor Stranges will feel. So once you get to the end game, you really start feeling like the pinch everywhere. So it's multiple issues. So one is like the 3-set bonus, right? We spoke about that in length. All Doctor Strange know about that. Extra 11% to defense appears or crit rate. That's big when you're trying to get to end game and max out your stats. The other part is the mega cards. So a lot of characters will have access to supervillain damage or defensive pierce or total damage. These are all stats that will help you cap out, you know, those crucial stats, and it makes the way the mega card rolls more flexible. Doctor Strange doesn't have any of those exclusives. So it makes it hard. You have to roll defensive pierce in a bonus stat. You can't get an exclusive. So then that requires you to get, you know, defensive pierce or PvP up in order to make the card usable in PvP. So and the same with PvE. You don't have super villain damage in exclusive. So instead of rolling a crit rate, crit damage, which will help in PvE card, you'll have to roll a super villain damage card instead, because you can't get it in an exclusive. Okay. So if you want to cap out in super villain damage, you'll need that.
Okay, so basically it comes down to the specific bonuses that they give Strange in either gear and the Omega cards. They're just not that useful for how Strange works, basically. That's long and short of it, right?
Basically, yeah. I mean, and then you can add in the little percentages and potential that we don't have. We don't have the greatest potential.
Okay. Right? Okay, cool. So let's start. That's a little high level on the stats. Let's start off with skills. So they just made some changes to skills. What are the good and the bad of this? Obviously, I'm assuming you're going to say the good is animation, but tell me about what you see as the good on all of that, including animations, and whether you think it's still you know, missing something, and then sort of the bad of what they changed.
Right. Well, when they did the survey, you know, even before we knew the survey was going on, you know, I talked to a whole bunch of high-level strangers, and mostly everyone was saying, you know, the most important part is to speed up animations. But it came with a twofold issue. So that's the good part, you know, the speed up animations is the good part. But then the other thing was that a lot of his skills come with high cooldown cost, high stamina cost. So it's great that we have faster animations and short burst matches like Dimension Duel. It's great. It's actually helping. But in longer matches, we're still waiting for stamina regen and cooldown. And for someone who like me who has God roll boots, it still becomes an issue the longer the match goes on, and like in Omega War, or Alliance Mega War, or Big Prime Boss in Dark Zone.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. I'm looking at skills behind me on the screen, and I think these are some of the main abilities that people use as a strange. Excuse me. The 7 Rings of Ragnador. That's 30.
Ring Repulsion.
Yeah, exactly. And it's the exact Ring Repulsion, and the stamina is 35. I looked at the Gateway Launch, which is that big beam that, you know, shoot out. That's 49 stam. And then Astral Projection's not too bad. That's at like 19.
Yeah, that's not bad at all.
Yeah, the Vishanti Assault's 37. And then Eldritch Swords, which the pizzas basically, is another 33. Those are not what everybody uses, but those seem to be some of the more popular ones. And you ain't wrong. I was like, holy cow, those are high. You know, and like, good Lord. So yeah, I definitely feel that there. Okay.
So one more thing about the skills is that they sped up 4. But then you was asking me the other day about, you know, using the skill that buffs your defensive pairs. That way you don't have to spec so much into it.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. They buffed the animation of those 4, but that skill that enhances defensive pairs, it's not buffed. It still takes a long time to cast.
Okay.
And then if you look at that, that's a stam requirement and cooldown. It's 24. It's 24, and I told you how much time I lapsed between the cooldown it would take. It was like about 5-second cooldown that I wouldn't have defensive pairs up. But again, that's me at end game with boots that have 2 stacks of cooldown, 3 stacks of stamina, and badges that have 3 stacks of cooldown on it. I'm still only at like 32%.
Yeah.
And that'll bleed over. I guess we'll talk about it later on. Is the spec, which kind of handcuffs our cooldown. So it's kind of like it makes the issue even worse that the spec is involved in the cooldown.
I gotcha. Yeah, and I'm looking at some of his other skills here, like the Lesson of Wisdom that decreases your cooldown by like 25% for 10 seconds. But it's it's like a 40-second cooldown. Is that one of the reasons that that skill doesn't get used very often?
Well, also it's stupid. So everything else will decrease your cooldown after you use the skill. That one you have to pop it first, and then use that skill within those 10 seconds. Use all the skills you want, and it'll decrease the cooldown of it. So it works opposite than all of the other cooldown skills.
Yeah, that to me, that seems like an immediate change that I'd make, and I don't think that'd be game breaking, but it'd be interesting to test that because it make it more, like Iron Man's Speed Amp, where as soon as you use that ability, anything that's on cooldown, it decreases by 25%. You know what I mean? Whatever that percent is. I don't know if that'd be hard to do code wise, but I would think that would be a really cool ability to have, and I think then the cooldown timer on that would make sense at 40 seconds, because if you could use that too often, it'd be broken. But yeah, no, that's okay. So I was looking at that and I was wondering, why isn't that one used more often? Because it just definitely seems like something that would be, very usable. And one of the things I know I want to do, I'll do a Doctor Strange, actually, I've been waiting to do a Doctor Strange build and skills video because I wanted to see how the changes came about, and I think I might actually have to change it where it's just reviewing his skills, you know what I mean, and going and I want to review it as a non-Doctor Strange player and just go like the one I just looked at, like that doesn't make any sense, you know what I mean? So why? Yeah. Or I'm gonna challenge it and go like, if you weren't here to explain it to me, and go, okay, hey, Doctor Strange, why does this one stink? And that's the answer, and it's unfortunate.
Well, the other problem is, and I spoke to you about this, is that a lot of these buffs are going up against damage skills that you want. So it's kind of like, do you want the buff? It's different than Iron Man. Iron Man has a tree which you could pick this buff or that buff or that buff. Every buff is going up against another buff. This one is going up against one of his best AoE damage, Vishanti Assault. Yeah. So you're gonna take out Vishanti Assault for the cooldown, then you don't have any AoEs. So if you're going into a Mega War, you're putting yourself at a disadvantage. You don't have anything that can hit multiple players.
Yeah, that's a good point. I see what you're saying. You would have two of his better abilities in that line, and you're sort of like cutting yourself short. Yeah, that's unfortunate. If you moved one of those around a little bit, especially since one is Mystic Arts and one's Touch of Ashante, I think you mentioned that. Like, they don't need to be in the same skill tree, so to speak. You could definitely move that around some. And then I was just looking at Confusion as well, and you just you see, where the heck is that one? And I have there it is, where you can see the circle where that sort of confuses people at, and even the cooldown of it, you can tell it takes a little bit to do it. So if somebody happens to get out of that, thanks, but the ability is pointless, and it's definitely, it's only for groups. So
I mean, a lot of his CC skills are like that. They're kind of useless because either you see them coming, or when they cast it, they're not going to affect you because you just run away from it. It's not like, Storm will throw something at you, or Starlit it'll directly hit you. A lot of his stuff is like laid on the floor, or you have to be guard broken to use them. So it's either or, other than maybe like Provoke and, maybe one other one that I can't think of right now, but there's not many CCs that actually like directly affect you immediately.
Yeah. And then so I'm looking at that Defense Pierce one where it shows this is the one we were talking about earlier, where it increases it by mine shows 13%, but it's just because it's not built up. I mean, even that one's got a little bit longer cooldown on it. It doesn't look like it's in a set that you could use for the as a fan favorite of abilities, but what skill tree is the one where you can actually summon the ads or whatever that are supposed to provoke? Where's that one at?
Yeah, that's astral projection. See, that's the other one that, with my suggestion to the devs is I would like to use the clones with my astral projection, with my soul predator and astral walk. So I would want to split those two up. Give us four different clones that do 4 different things, and give us 4 dies, because those are the better of the two. Like, I could see a build where I can play very good defense if I can use those two together. I understand they want him to be like some type of support, which he's never been a support, but I mean, you can play very good defense if you have good support skills. And it seems as though his tree is just compressed, and you got to pick either or instead of using both of them at the same time, which I don't mind having to pick either or, but the skills don't directly line up. Like, I shouldn't have to pick between a cooldown and a buff, or
I mean a
cooldown or attack.
In theory, each, so we've got, let's just say we have 4 lines of skills. In theory, which in each line of those skills, you should have we'll call it a column of a play style, so that if you pick the first column, it's play style tank. If you pick the second column of skills, it's play style support, whatever it is. And I'm just making stuff up. Column 3 would be, you're attacking people, but you're a glass cannon or something. And it seems like a lot of his abilities, it's sort of hard to mix and match around there to make a certain thing. So you're like a little bit of this, a little bit of that, which I get if somebody wants to do that, that's fine. But if the game sort of inherently forces you to be that way, and you can't, like I'm looking at some of the provokes, like some of the buffs, some of the supports, and like you said, it's hard to pick a path a little bit where it's like, well, this is where I'm forced because these are all his best abilities, and if I pick the cooldown one, then I'm losing out on a big damage thing, and I don't have enough damage because his cooldowns are so long that I'm just running around. So I have to go pure damage on something because I can't group up enough things to make it worthwhile. I don't know if I'm off base on that or not, but that's sort of just what I'm seeing because truth is I've never really dove really deep into each skill of this guy. Anyways, how off base am I on that?
You kind of spot on. The other thing to point out is like some of these skills are like the exact same thing, and I think I said that in the note to the dev is like, yo, these skills are the exact same thing, and they're not good to start with, so no one ever uses them. Perfect case of point, we have 2 actually. Mirror Dimension. The first 2 skills are like, okay, one does one damage, one does the other damage. Neither one are are great. You know,
Yeah.
it's one of those skills. The whole skill tree, actually, the 3 attacks skills in that tree is all pretty much similar, and they're not great because it requires the person you're attacking to stay in a specific spot.
Yeah, those abilities are a little bit tough, and that's the one that I think they leaned into a little bit. That's where the one where all the mirrors are dropping, right?
Yeah, that last one is like instant bleed, right? That one is probably the best one. Okay. The other 2, the first 2, if you've watched the animation, you have to literally wait until the animation pops. So the second one says, you see when it pops, it actually does more damage. So you are required to keep the person in that circle for it to pop in order to do damage. And then the second one does like knockback. But when the actual animation finishes and pops, you'll be able to knock them back, and that's if the guard broken.
Yeah, I'm watching these right now. This is okay. All right, so this is like true me seeing this for the first time. This is the stupidest thing in the world. Like, these abilities are completely useless. I mean, these take forever to go off. Nobody's ever going to stand in those that long in any game mode. Like, even the AI. This is insane.
Yeah, mirror dimension would suit those clones great. The summons great.
Yeah.
I mean, mirror dimension, you're summoning mirrors of yourself. That would be great. They could take those out and put those in there. That way we can use the Astral Walk, the Soul Predator with the summons.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, like, and clearly within, you know, Strange's tree, each skill line, you know, like the mirror dimension, for example, like they've got a number of different classes within that mirror dimension. So it doesn't need to be a perfect match. You can, I mean, they're not all illusion magic in here, are they? Then maybe they are. No, one's a touch of Ashanti. So you could sort of, you know, and I'd argue mirror dimension, why isn't a clone mirror dimension, right? Like it's sort of like, you know, you're mirroring yourself. So yeah, these, oh my Lord, this first one, the dimensional lockdown, and the second one, illusion magic, is so bad. I mean, like, this is real, like, for anybody watching the video, how long that is going, that's real speed right there. So imagine keeping someone in that spot for that long. Just no. That's just insane. Oh my Lord. Okay. Yeah, I'm actually getting my learn on Strange here a little bit, which is, you know, leads me, and we won't go down this path, but this is what worries me, Netmarble, about squad ranks and squad battles and all that stuff is, you know, I'm somebody who actually studies some of this stuff as a content creator. The fact that I don't even know this ability because I just don't play Doctor Strange, you got to think about that when you're thinking about squads and how many characters you want people to build up, because it gets difficult to understand all this stuff. So anyway, we'll stay off that. Anything else? Go ahead. What were you gonna say?
I don't know if you want to, how long you want to stay on skills, but I mean, he has another one that's kind of like that. The first 2 of Eye of Agamotto.
Let's look at those.
Similar things. One just recovers your stamina. This thing does no damage, and look how long the cooldowns are on it. The first 2.
All right, so one skills. Is a 30-second, and it looks like it's an orb. It applies a whopping 30% of Doctor Strange's attack, which is pointless. I can't even imagine his attack's that high, so that's totally silly, and you're never going to use that, like you said, because the cooldown is insane. I mean, if the attack was like 300%, okay, fine, maybe that cooldown makes sense, but it's 30%. So Netmarble, you might have missed a 0 there. I'd check into that. And then the second one here, let me just see. So it summons an orb again. It's 10 seconds, applies. It's the same ability, but it just is more damage. Okay.
The same ability. I'm just like, why do we have 2?
Yeah, that's oh my Lord.
One, no one uses it, but 2, why do we have 2?
I've never seen anybody use this ability in the entire game. Which is pretty funny because I've seen Spider-Man with his bats and his, you know, some abilities that are like, that's not the best one to use, but, you know, okay, it's cool and fun and I get it. Or, you know, you see some people use his summons or orbs or whatever they are, his spider tech stuff. And those, again, sometimes they're good, sometimes they're not, but it's questionable versus this one. I don't think I've ever even seen this used once in game by anybody. I'd be curious if, yeah, that seems totally pointless, where it's literally the same ability. The one with 70% damage, which still is trash, frankly. it's got a little more stamina, but you're never going to do that for that long of a cooldown to only hit for 70% of somebody's attack. Now, if Doctor Strange had like an insane amount of attack on him, okay, maybe that 70% makes sense. But even then, why would you want to use an ability that like has less attack than what you have when you can just use an ability that uses all of your attack? It doesn't have, I would scratch, in my opinion, this ability is terrible and they should get rid of it altogether unless they figure out a complete way to rework it.
Apply a CC like slow or something useful. Something.
The stack.
Like, just not an attack.
Yeah, the stack for, that they just added with the mirror dimension stuff where you could trap somebody. Like,
forget about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not a big fan of the stack stuff in general in this game at the moment. I would be if it actually felt like it was a little bit more applicable, but I just don't, unless you're in a mega war and you've got a number of people putting those stacks on you, I feel like they never really apply. Like Dimension Duel, like I mean, granted, I'm a widow, so I can hide a little bit, so maybe it's hard for somebody to get those on me, but I don't feel like I ever get cocooned or, I barely even get guard broke, if ever, now that I think about it.
You want me to go into why that is so bad, or are we gonna get there?
No, go ahead.
So this is so bad because they attach it to mystic arts. So I mean, anyone like five hits of any attack, like, I mean, the match is over by then. I don't know what type of PvP they think they're creating, but 5 attacks and the match is over. But specifically, this 5 stacks using a mystic art skill. We're talking about the dark magic shifting sands.
Yeah.
Spec. The problem with that is, and they showed it, why they designed it so bad in the video. They didn't turn on damage, because if they had turned on damage, they would have realized, oh, the person's dead. He can't even last 5 hits. So mystic arts, let's do the 4 most popular mystic art skills. Okay. Ring of Repulsion does 1,600 worth of damage. Gateway Launch does 2,000% damage. Fashanti Assault does 1,100 damage. Caliber Dallas does 1,100 damage. The person is dead. That's 4 skills. Yeah. The person is dead. If I cleanly hit them with all 4 of those, they're dead already. Yeah. So getting to 5 stacks to banish was completely stupid. I mean, if they would have did hit him once and then in the next attack will banish him, that might have been okay. But I mean, they should have just, the way she said it was that as soon as you have the spec on, you'll be able to bypass the guard and be able to do snare, which would have been great. I mean, Doctor Strange I'd have been like, all right, Doctor Strange is pretty good now. Like, if I could snare someone right off back, that would have gave me an advantage, you know? Mm-hmm. But the way it is now, that spec is completely useless. Yeah,
I mean, it looks like, and I'm looking at these abilities, they do have high percent damage. So, like, why not link that to, I'm going to make something up. I'm not a Strange guy, but like either a Touch of Ashanti class or maybe, what's the other one that he's got?
Illusion Magic.
There it is.
Yeah, there's not a lot of skill. I mean, Illusion Magic, the problem with Illusion Magic is a lot of their skills aren't like attack skills. Like the summon, the clones are Illusion Magic. A fusion is a magic. So I mean, they're not doing anything really. I mean, doing any damage. They're just like distraction, support type stuff. And Touch of Ashanti, the same thing. There's not very much skill, very many skills that are great there as well. So, right.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just looking at a couple of them where it's like, it's Illusion Magic, where the idea is that if you want to link that stacking ability to something that's not necessarily going to kill somebody in 4 to 5 hits, right? I like that Mystic Arts has that, so that's a path you can pick. Mystic Arts, you pick that path, you are, I'll call it a glass cannon type, where you just do a ton of damage and that's it. You either burst or die. And so it's like, you don't want a CC type ability within that chain or in that tree, but in a different tree where maybe the damage isn't as high, that's where you want to play with CC, and like, I can survive a bit longer, but I'm CCing you and it's hard to kill me. That I could see that working a little better there. So okay, this is interesting. I'm actually looking forward to going through these skills in a little bit more detail.
Now, illusion magic skills also have a super long cooldown, so I wouldn't want. I mean, Mystic Art is the class you want to attach something to, right? Because that's the most used class. The other ones are not very useful, so I don't even want to put that idea. Hey, attach it to something else, and they're not useful at all.
Yeah.
I mean, they have their little niches, but overall, Mystic Art is the class that everyone's using as a Doctor Strange. But you just don't want the stacks to be so high like that. That's just silly. Like,
I see what you're saying.
Like, it should be like one hit, and then like that would be fair. Coming right off the back and be able to snare somebody, fine. But if I hit them with something in my next attack, if I want to use a snare, which by the way, also they didn't speed up the animation of that. That's really easy to dodge.
Yeah.
So it's still gonna be hard to land. So I would want it like something like that, because right now as it is, that skill is completely useless. By the way, that banish thing, I was testing to see if you could use it in PvE. It doesn't banish supervillains at all.
Really?
So,
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm looking at some of these snare animations. They're definitely a bit slow. I mean, so from the counter side of Doctor Strange stuff, I wouldn't want one hit, maybe 2 or 3. Just as like being on the other side of you, so that I don't feel like there need to be a cooldown on the ability to land that side of thing. Because if you're able to just constantly snare somebody, then it's like, okay, I can't do anything against Doctor Strange. But I like that concept, and what I was going for with putting something like that in the other abilities is giving you some options of, what do I want to be as a Doctor Strange? If they make those other abilities a little bit more useful, it'd be nice to see, well, this is a Doctor Strange who's an illusion magic Doctor Strange, or a Doctor Strange that's a mystic arts Doctor Strange, that sort of thing.
I get that.
But I mean, the truth is looking at these, I appreciate what they did a little bit, but I still feel like there is, I mean, just talking to you, and we haven't even touched the other stuff yet. But I'm just looking at these and going like, I feel like he needs a pretty heavy rework as far as where the skills are. And even sometimes some of the classes, and if I were them, I'd just do it. I mean, I understand that might be frustrating to, somebody who's invested a lot in him. But as long as you don't, this is the way I look at it is, so like somebody invested in, steampunk for Strange, and I don't have my spreadsheet up, but, or do I? No, I don't. Okay. So if I was to do that, then, say it was something that made it where, his mystic art skills are what I got out of that. So that they got to be careful with that, because somebody went so hard into steampunk and whatever ability that is, for argument's sake, we're going to call it mystic arts. It makes it that great. Now you've changed mystic arts to maybe be maybe not as powerful, but you've also made all the other ones more powerful. I get that they have to be careful with that. And I don't want them to nerf mystic arts, because it's not. I don't know. Well, I personally feel like...
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. That's all they have to do. In order to make Doctor Strange better, leave Mystic Arts alone, and then rework the other 2 classes to make them more usable. Yeah. Especially Illusion Magic, because he has some specs which may be usable for Illusion Magic, but Illusion Magic is just a badly designed skill class. I was talking to he's what's his name? Lord of Darkness. He has a YouTube page. So he's a Doctor Strange. He's a Doctor Strange man, and we were saying that it seems like Doctor Strange was the first character they designed, just by how his skills are just all over the place. Like if you look at Iron Man, you go from one to the second one, to the third one, to the fourth one, and all those skills in that row all make sense to be together. With Doctor Strange, you'll have a buff here, buff there. It's kind of even hard for me to, if you like, all right, put on the cooldown one. All right, which tree is that in? Because he doesn't have like a tree that's specific. Oh, these are all buffs. And he has enough buffs to make this buff, defense appears, cooldown, guard. Like he has enough to make him all in one line, but they're all spread out for some reason. It's weird. It's like they just designed him first, and then as they started designing other characters, they got more organized in how they designed them.
Yeah, I could see that, and that's a good transition to the specialization portion, And I'm just going through here and I've unlocked none of his specialization, obviously, but you know, I'm seeing some in here, like for instance, the ultimate gauge recovery. I think when the game first started, I'm assuming people loved that, but now that's like, you don't even care about ultimate gauge recovery at all in any game mode, do you?
They sped up the animation, which was like whoopee. I mean, it's okay, but you still can die in it. And then it doesn't do any damage. Like I can literally follow through and the person's still alive.
Yeah.
It still has like, it's an ultimate. So, you know, in normal thinking, ultimate should do the most damage. If I do that and actually land it, I probably still have to launch like maybe 2 skills to finish them off. It might have took a quarter of damage. To a high level player, like a player like my level, it probably would have took like a quarter of damage.
Ugh, yeah, and that's an ultimate where it's like Iron Man's ultimate can, you know, 1, it snares you, 2, it can, you know, track you, 3, it can kill you and anybody else around you. It's sort of like, okay, I mean, Spider-Man's ultimate's sort of too. Storm's is I mean, there's not a lot of ultimates in game. You know, Widow's is nice because it's like the evasion type tactic and gives you a crit. But yeah, I mean, I remember when Doctor Strange's ultimate was like a game changer in Omega Wars. It was just like, oh my gosh, this is brutal. But it feels like it's fallen off a little bit. So talk to me a little bit about the specializations in here. I am seeing the one where you were talking about the cooldown of using 3 illusion magic skills. That, like you said, because illusion magic is sort of pointless, not a lot of people use that one. But what else in here do you... I see a max cooldown decrease. What are some of the things that like you think needs to be improved in here?
So let's start with the new ones, right? So the way they advertise the new one, we mentioned it, the stacks of mystic arts, right?
Which one's the new one? Where's this one at on
the green one on the top? It's the dark magic shifting sands.
Yep. Okay, I'm on it.
Yeah, so that was the one where we was talking about the stacks and that mystic arts class is just too strong to have 5 stacks. Maybe one, maybe, you know, we already talked about that, so I don't want to talk about that. But then the other part was that they said white magic Athene, the pink one.
Yeah,
to the right,
Yep,
a little bit further down.
Yep.
They said, oh, this synergizes really well because with the Mystic Arts one. Well, Mystic Arts only has 1 CC in its entire skill tree. 1 skill that does CC. So when attacking debuff characters, how am I going to apply debuffs with Mystic Art class?
Yeah,
they're not CC
there.
skills.
Yeah.
So how is that synergizing well? So, I mean, these are things that they just didn't think about. And this one is pretty, if you're just going for, you know, attack and straight damage and you know, you're in Omega War, pray that you got some storms or somebody that applies CCs because for your skills, if you're using Mystic Arts, this isn't going to apply.
Yeah.
Based off of you know, your skills. I mean, if you have a Hulk and you provoke, okay, then you got some things. There's things that you can add-ons, but just based off of his skills, this spec doesn't work.
Yeah, I can see that.
The way they thought it was. What does work better because of the universal global changes that they did was white magic hog-off blessings, the green one all the way at the bottom.
Yep.
Yeah, I know you've been saying that, you know, you've been losing the Stranges and stuff like that, and we've all been talking. Strange is better because he doesn't die as fast anymore. Because everybody's not one-shotting anymore. So he is better because of the global changes, not necessarily his changes to him. Okay. You know, he still has some holdback, but this helps out a lot, keeping you alive. Okay. I could see that. Yeah, so so you can, there's a way for you to increase Strange's cooldown past maximum 50% with the time manipulation.
Yeah, the way, you got that one up.
The yellow one. The problem is you have to spec so heavy in the cooldown because of the other spec on the top that they still have 10%,
or whatever.
10%, yeah. So it, you know, his spec tree is still a problem. Like I said, I have God roll boost, 2 stacks of cooldowns, 3 stamina. I have 6 badge with 3 stacks of cooldown in it, and I'm at 32%. If I took that off, I'd be capped. If I took that spec off, I would be capped. But it's just holding you back to the point where you have to stack so much in the cooldown to get it to a good level with your skills that have high cooldown on it.
Yeah.
So those are some of the issues with his spec tree.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, it seems like, and what's the time manipulation waves of despair? What's that high percentage once you get it maxed at 9 or 10 or whatever you're at?
I think it's 63%.
Okay.
It's 63%, I believe.
And then what's the will of the destroyer? What's that increase it by?
10%.
Okay, so between the two of them, it's a 53% gain. Okay. What were you gonna say? Sorry.
Well, the wave of despair doesn't increase the cooldown. I mean, it doesn't give you more cooldown. It just allows you to go past cap.
Oh.
Yeah. It doesn't increase. It doesn't give you more cooldown.
Okay,
it
it's the cap increase.
Push it past 50.
I got you.
Yeah.
All right.
So it'll let you go to 63%, but you still have to put that in.
Yep.
Cards or whatever.
You. Yeah, Widow's got some of that for crit damage. I was just reading it wrong. Wow. Okay, and you don't have any way to increase your cooldown percentage anywhere in your spec tree. It's just the one that decreases it.
Exactly.
Ugh. Wow. All right. Wow. Especially, it's interesting. I get that, like, who is the other character? Is it Spider-Man where you increased attack? Or there's a character out there, and I can't remember who it is at the moment, where you gain one stat, but your other one sort of like, it's like a gain and a decrease somehow. And so, like, I feel like, though, in those situations, it's not detrimental to the character because there's other mechanics to be able to get you through it. It does seem like, and especially with a Strange where the cooldowns would be so critical, to have it increase this cooldown on this one. Yeah, that does sort of feel bad.
I misspoke. They do have two cooldowns in the specs, but they're both attached to illusion magic, which you don't really want to use.
Yeah.
Because like I said, they're not that great of skills. So
yeah. What's the other one? Force field
time manipulation, force fields, and the orange one, time manipulation, reverberation. The orange one.
I got you. Oh, and they're both illusion magic.
Yeah, and that's one of my notes. That's my note to the devs too. I said they're overlapping. Make one of them tied to Mystic Arts. Yeah, that is why. Why do they have that? I would tie the reverberation to Mystic Arts because I use this sometimes. I actually, that build that I showed you recently from the giant So I try to use that, and he has two illusion magic skills that I would use: the summon, clone, and the snare. But the third one is just it's a throwaway. Whatever skill you use, it's like, all right, this is not going to do anything.
Yeah, so it's literally just to equip 3 classes to get the decrease for those skills down.
And they don't have 3 good illusion magic skills.
Yeah,
they barely have 2.
Yep, that's tough. I mean, so all of the cooldowns in illusion magic, one of which you need 3 of those abilities to equip, and they only have 2. I mean, all of the illusion magic is a little questionable, but 2 of them, okay, fine, we'll argue you can get in there, but a third one's a stretch where you're barely not even using it, so it's like a throwaway. Well,
yep.
Okay, well, I mean, I see what you're saying there. That makes sense. Let's transition over to the gear aspect of it. This one's probably gonna be a little bit quicker, but I'm just looking at the costumes, and the set bonuses sort of suck. You touched on this earlier, right?
Yep. And HP and defense. I mean, those are the 2 defensive stats that everybody's looking for. You're looking for crit damage decrease, you're looking for PvP decrease, you're looking for supervillain damage decrease. I mean, defense and HP is just an afterthought, like a passive stat you build up. So the stash at the 3 set bonus is kind of silly.
Yeah, I'm just looking at them, and you're exactly right. They're all HP and defense. Even Savage Shadowlands is a little different, but and I'm even checking out the costumes. It's okay, so that's, or the specials rather, but yeah, so that's your normal ability buffing. Yeah, that's I mean, especially with defense pierce being so strong in the game, defense I mean, don't get me wrong, like defense helps because it's, you know, the higher defense you have, the less the defense pierce can really affect it. Because it's like, you know, if you have 50 defense pierce versus 5,000, or I'm sorry, 50 defense versus 5,000 defense, you still have enough defense in there to sort of prevent an ability from hurting you. But, you know, that's a high level of defense you need to build up to. And if those are literally the only ones in there, and in a game that is really set up for just attacking people, you know, and not really surviving, at least at the moment. Yeah, I could see where these just sort of aren't that exciting. So your suggestion here is more maybe it's a guard damage decrease or a crit damage decrease type situation. I don't know if guard damage decrease is a good idea for Stranges or not.
Just make all costumes the same, you know? I mean, for across the entire board, with the exception of Captain America, which we understand what his role is, and they did a great job buffing him to that role. Other than him, all the other characters have the same role. So why would Doctor Strange be any different? In any player's mind, is Doctor Strange different than any other character that he needs a special 3-set bonus? I mean, just make it the same as everyone else. I mean, we could play fancy and say, hey, yeah, give him crit damage decrease and blah blah blah, but he's not really that much different than any other character.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. You're looking for an offensive ability that's worthwhile on him. You know, like... Right,
because you get an 11% defensive pierce crit rate. Right now, I'm missing crit rate by like 10%.
Yeah.
I'm missing, and my build the crit rate by 10%, which, I mean, I'd be at cap right now if I would have had that. Yeah. And I would have had to be chasing like a perfect roll, which my gear is pretty perfect. I mean, I'm one roll off. I have an attack on my cape, one attack roll on my cape, and one guard damage on my pants. So I'm pretty much perfect. The other stats are rolled well. So and I still can't get to cap without taking something off. It's like a bigger puzzle than other characters. My magic was easy to cap all stats. I mean, if I had transmutation, I would have had cap PvP and PvE stats for.
Yeah, it's interesting. So I just went through all the characters real quick and sort of all of their little buffs on their regional gear. And it's clear they are giving like, they'll sort of like compartmentalize the character bases. So basically Captain America and Doctor Strange are based on gear alone, appear to be defense minded characters because it's HP and defense. All the other characters are either crit damage, crit rate, defense pierce, something along those lines. So based on gear, it's going, and let's be real, gear is the path in this game. You know, you pick your gear path and it's really hard to get off of that path. You know what I mean? And like to the point where I once made a video where it's like, maybe you should focus on what gear you want to build and then pick the character you're like from there. And Doctor Strange, they've leaned into that gear where it's just like, okay, we being the Netmarble, we want him to be a tank. It's like, okay, well, or, you know, we want him to survive, but, you know, he doesn't play like Captain America. You know what I mean? Like that's, if you want him to be that sort of ability, then why isn't he more like that? I don't know. That's a interesting concept. So yeah, I see that there. I know that's a big hot button for you, for all the Stranges out there. I definitely wanted to bring that up. Anything else gear wise before we jump to potential?
Yeah, he's like, because of that 3-set bonus, probably Steampunk would be the best, and he's the most like, he benefits the most from special gear because his 3-set bonus is just completely useless. So if you can get Steampunk on him, that's great, because that Ring of Repulsion will hit like a truck. Yeah. So I was telling some of our alliance mates, if I would never even try to put regular regional gear on him because of the 3-set. Just immediately
go
put
straight
Steampunk if you have it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Honestly, like the point. If you want to play Strange, if you're so set on playing Strange, you might as well just go straight into Steampunk, because the rest of the gear is just, it's going to frustrate you based on how they have their skills set up in specializations. That's essentially what you're saying, right? Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so let's go into potential here. All right, so let's see. Give me the high level version of how you guys feel about, or how you feel for the Doctor Strange potential. What's in there? I know they changed a little bit, right?
Yeah, but again, they seem to like hit a lot on ultimate gauge recovery, HP, status effect accuracy. I'm not a fan of his potential. Again, I played with Magic and I was planning on maining her until they took forever to create transmutation. So I just went back to Doctor Strange in frustration. But her potential is so much better. I mean, everything is useful in there. So he has status effect accuracy, he has ultimate gauge recovery, and then he has the cooldown that they took out, replaced with crit damage, and then they gave us, they kind of washed that cooldown. So we still struggle with cooldown, and that's why, at the beginning of this, we was talking so much about cooldown, is they took out about 4 or 5% of cooldown, gave us the crit damage. Great. Crit damage is not useless, but we still need the cooldown because of how you set up the spec. Yeah. So they took that away, and then they lowered the spec cooldown by 5%. So they didn't actually give us anything. They just washed out the mistake that they did.
Yeah, I'm looking
by taking away the cooldown.
I'm looking at this and I'm just going like, and I'm seeing a lot of the same of what you're seeing. There's a ton of defense in here. There's a ton of HP in here, which they've leaned into on his gear as well. But why not like drop one of those HPs or defenses and have that cooldown come back in if that truly is sort of, one of the pain points? Because again, I don't know. I mean, maybe there's something I'm missing here. I'm hearing a lot from you and other Stranges that he just doesn't tend to be a tank. And frankly, outside of Captain America in this game, tanks don't do anything. Unless you're a dodge tank with Spidey, which, that's pretty solid. But I feel like that's somewhat controlled. It can be annoying and there's RNG to it. But like, I've never faced a Doctor Strange and thought that they were anywhere near, or seen or heard of anybody facing a Doctor Strange that seems to be anywhere near the Captain America tank ability or the Spider-Man dodge tank ability. And that's what the potential and the gear show for this character. And it doesn't really make sense to me. And I definitely think they need to adjust some things. So I hope that they're still analyzing this, and I hope they don't think it's done. I mean, if they do, I'd love to have a conversation with them and just hear like, hey, this is, one of the things that I'd like to hear from is like, what is the build you think he should be? Or what are the I know they talked about the guard break one, which, and then the other one we were discussed earlier where you're like, it doesn't even make sense because you're killing them before and that guard break doesn't do any, it was the Mystic Arch don't debuff. So what's the point? So it's like, okay, but what other builds are you guys talking about here? Because as the player base, you clearly, it's a little unclear of what to do here. And some of this stuff isn't beneficial to the builds that we see as being the most powerful.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, the way they built them is just, it seemed like it was all over the place. I mean, they could really take a step back. One thing I was mentioning when this latest buff came out was that it felt like they had this planned already, and this survey was just to ease out tension, because I feel like they took almost nothing of what we put in our survey and put it in there. The only thing they did that we asked for was decrease the cooldown, but I know a lot of us were saying decrease the animation time. But a lot of us were saying decrease the animation time of all the skills, not just 4. So they took that one piece of advice out of all the things that we wrote in the survey. And I've read some of the other people's surveys, and seeing that they had really good different ideas than mine, and that's the only thing that they added, to out of all of the surveys that we gave, that's the only thing that they added. So it feels as though this buff was things that they already had in mind, and they tried to roll it out there, and it kind of it didn't hit the mark with us. Okay, all right. I mean, I see what you guys are saying. I still want to keep hearing from, I've talked to a number. I know there's a server out there that some Doctor Stranges are on that they're just talking about high level stuff like this, and they're wanting to try to get with the developers at some point and share some of their information. Any Doctor Stranges out there, I would try to hunt that down
and, you know, get in on those polls. I think that they're definitely looking for people who have sort of tested multiple builds, have really dove into this. And yeah, I mean, look, I am a widow, so I try to play sort of devil's advocate with some of this stuff. You know, I've been saying to you guys, I feel like Strange has beaten me a little more, and I have heard what you've been saying. It's like, yeah, but it seems to be more the global changes, and maybe you're right there. It is more global changes. So I would like to see maybe a couple more adjustments here, and or like some complete reshuffling of the skills. Personally, I wouldn't be upset by that. Like, you don't need to buff Mystic Arts, right? But a lot of the other stuff we talked about, I would do a real heavy rework on this guy in a manner that I can't. I mean, like, look, we all know Yags, right? And there's a few other Stranges who have probably invested somewhat close to him, but not many. And if you keep that handful of people sort of like happy with what they've, you know, invested in the path, or give them, and this is the thing I'm going to preach until they do it, I swear. If you change Mystic Arts and somebody, whether it's you or Yags or, you know, Susie, who went down a path, give them the option to click a button and not just transmute, but like, you know what, we changed the complete path of this. Now, you know, Steampunk used to be useful, but now Rise of the East is somewhat of the equivalent. So we're going to, if you so choose, want this, here's a ticket. We're going to give you the ability to switch over to Rise of the East, because the way we just did changed everything. And people are like, you know, okay, yeah, you know, and I don't want to get into the refund discussion, but that'll help avoid that type of stuff. So I encourage them to change things, try to focus on something like that while you're working on it. I know we've been talking for probably way longer than either of us thought we would, but I've enjoyed sort of the chat and diving into this with you. Is there any other, you know, high level sort of stuff that you'd like to see from them, with any other Strange, you know, adjustments that they might make?
So my top 3, I guess, things that I would change now is, again, we have to do something with the cooldown stamina course, because that's the second part of the speed up animations. Then the stat chasing. So I think maybe if they would just switch out some of the Omega card exclusives that we can get, maybe that would help alleviate that problem. I would also like to see the 3-set bonus change, but I feel like that's the least likely to happen. And then the specializations, like these 2 specializations was not it. I actually had a suggestion where, you know, we convert some of that HP and defense that they give us into defensive pairs and crit rate, which would have helped the stat chasing as well. So I would, the specs, stat chasing, and the cooldown stamina issue. Those are the 3 things that I like to see adjusted.
Cool. Well, I appreciate you taking the time and diving into this with me. You know, again, I learned quite a bit about Strange today, and I understand a little bit more you guys' pain. Just looking at this, where some of this stuff didn't even make sense, and I feel like I personally just started scratching the surface of understanding him a little bit better. So appreciate the time you took out today. Thanks for talking about it. I'll definitely obviously post this. When you guys are all seeing this on YouTube, it should be Sunday, the 3rd of April. And hopefully let me know in the comments below, or the Discord link. Come to the Discord in the description below. Let us know what you think. I still have a Doctor Strange section up there just to hear from people, because I'll take that down and lock it once I feel like I generally either I'll think the Strangers are all crazy and want too much, or I'll get to the point where it's like, no, this seems decent. And I'm personally not there yet. And so yeah, please come on over. Again, Busy, thanks for taking the time. You know, obviously you and I will keep talking about this in the future. And yeah, everybody. So hammer down like buttons, click notification bells, all that sort of stuff. Until next time, I hope you have a wonderful day.